And we have takes. Welcome to Football Takes.
Football! Yeah! Football!
Gentlemen, just over 2 weeks until the National Football League draft. We have our draft expert and aficionado Thor Nystrom here on Football Takes, the sports dad, Judd Zolgad. I am Phil Mackey. It's a glorious time of year here, and so stick around for Thor's draft take today because it involves a fascinating player that people are going to want to have on their radars. But a shout out to North American Banking Company, helping to power our Football Takes on this podcast. Hit that subscribe button, by the way, on the Football Takes YouTube channel. We just launched this a few months ago. Brand new podcast here. Apple, Spotify, North American Banking Company, where online and mobile banking are very, very important to you and them, but also blending those cutting-edge online tools with personal relationships, that face-to-face community bank feel you get going back to 1998 with North American Banking Company. 6 locations in the Twin Cities for the upper Midwest audience. Go to nabankcode.com/Mackey to learn more. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. How are we feeling here? A couple weeks left until the draft, gentlemen. Let's get it.
Man, we're getting there. Yeah, really, really close now. Just, gathering final intel and seeing some of these pro day results, and then some results from the International Player Pathway program that I'm excited to talk about today.
Judd, who are your top 10 favorite international pathway players?
Yeah, Judd, let's get into it.
Oh, well, I mean, of all time, number one, easily.
Liger Duzable, or what was that guy's name?
Moritz Boehringer.
Yeah,
the
German
had
Randy Moss.
The German YouTube. We found the German YouTube.
When my hand goes up, the ball comes out. Get the ball out.
What's he short?
We've got to get out of here.
Mo Boehringer, what a fabulous athlete he was.
Oh my God, that was fun. But no, the player pathway program is great.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah. Big fan.
An extra roster spot too.
Yeah, exactly right.
All right, we're going to go around the room as we do, and either sling takes or questions here on Football Takes. So mine's more of a question, and I'd love your guys' reaction to this as well. This came out. It was a Front Office Sports exclusive. Front Office Sports has become like a leader in breaking industry news and broadcast stuff. It's kind of fascinating. But my question is ESPN already lining up Schefter and Kiper replacements under our noses? I have a sub-question off this as well that I will ask you guys. But here's what Front Office Sports wrote over the weekend. I think this came out on Friday. There's nothing imminent. But with NFL Network now under the ESPN umbrella, and with both Schefter and Kiper being the biggest names on their respective beats for breaking news and draft, both are going to be front and center for the entire draft weekend. But the youthful-looking Schefter, who turns 60 years old this year, and then it notes Adrian Wojnarowski tapped out of the insider game at 55. Kiper, the pioneering king of the draft gurus, the Sherpas that the Thor Nystroms have followed up the draft analysis mountain, turns 66 this year, and he's been a mainstay of ESPN's NFL draft coverage since 1984. And over on the flip side of that, you have Ian Rappaport and Daniel Jeremiah, who are 46 and 48 years old, respectively. Both are highly thought of by ESPN brass. Whenever Schefter and Kiper move on or retire, it's easy to see Ian Rappaport and Daniel Jeremiah sliding into those respective roles. My first question is, what do you make of this possibility? My second question is, would you have guessed Adam Schefter is 60 years old?
I knew he was because he was he worked with a bunch of guys in Denver who I got to know back in my days on the beat. So I knew but I mean, he does not look 60 or almost 60.
Pretty good for 60. God.
Yeah, sure doesn't, but it makes sense to me. I mean, Daniel Jeremiah, that's the obvious guy to do that. He's so good on TV, he's so knowledgeable, etc. As far as an heir apparent for Mel Kiper, that would make a lot of sense. And the Schefter one, I guess, what are they reporting that they've heard that Schefter is like that he's considering retiring?
His contract's just about up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're reading tea leaves.
And Ian Rappaport's contract with NFL Network, which has now been absorbed by ESPN, is up in May. And so there's sometimes promises get made in those contract discussions. I don't think there's any actual steam on Schefter pulling a Woj on the basketball side.
No way.
They're front office sports is just connecting some dots that, hey, he's getting a little older. And they've got, I mean, between Ian Rappaport and, I mean, hell, even like some of the other, like Tom Pelissero, who's based in Minnesota, has been a friend of ours for 20 years. But they're just like, they're kind of projecting. I didn't know that there was a 14-year age gap between Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter. That is shocking to me. That there's like a generation between those two guys.
Yeah, I think Rap Sheet was just breaking into the game when I was doing it. He was at the Boston Herald, I think. So, but the thing with, that story also has a really good background on when Schefter was with, because he started off with nationally NFL Network. And what happened there was they had a very contentious battle to where like the league network took away like his phone and his contacts. They erased his contacts and stuff, and they locked him out of the building. And then he landed at ESPN. So I think what they are insinuating is if Schefter tries to get anything like close to Stephen A. as far as the price point goes, which is like, I think 10 million a season.
Stephen A. is like 20 or 25 million.
Okay. But anyway, their point was Rappaport's right there to re-sign so they can essentially play Schefter and Rappaport off each other in contract negotiations. And, you know, if you're thinking about it too, if you went from like Schefter to Rappaport, I think there would be some immediate like, oh my God, what happened? But again, it's a transactional job. So I would not pay an insider like that a ton if I could get one of them to take a reasonable deal.
Well, how much of that in terms of, to me, like the draft expert game is a much more like, it is your work, your opinions, and it's in your, maybe I'm disrespecting the Schefters and the Rappaports, but you work your ass off to get to that role, like as an original reporter, right? And then you get in that role, however it happens over time. And it's not that you're not still working your ass off and getting burnt out like Adrian Wojnarowski, but the news flows to you more than you digging for the news, right? So if ESPN says, listen, we got a small handful of guys where the news kind of all like comes to all you guys. I mean, Stephen A. Smith, like him or not, is getting paid $20 million for his opinions on things and his polarization, right? So it is the fact that ESPN now has all these assets, and there's all sorts of other ones too, like, you know, Jeremy Fowler and Dan Graziano, and where do all these reporters kind of fall in the pantheon?
Would make sense to try to use both those situations and maybe not have to pay quite as much. You know, we'll have to see how that goes. But yeah, Schefter seems like he's still at the top of his game. So I think, you know, that it would be surprising to me, if he ended up moving on pretty quick. But if you have another option that you feel comfortable with and he's willing to accept less, that maybe that's sort of what that report's getting at. But yeah, I expect Schefter to be working for another decade or so.
Yeah, and it looks pretty good for 60.
Yeah.
It looks great for 60.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one's debating that. I mean,
let that hair go gray.
Keeps himself in good shape. Football. Works out, I'm sure, regularly.
His diet, exercise, very important. Yeah. He starts his day with 30 grams of protein. Yes.
Sounds like Mel Kiper.
Judd, give us a take.
Okay, my take is this. The National Football League is so hypocritical because this is a league where they do not allow in season the media to watch practices. Like they'll let you go watch stretching and individual drills. But they are so paranoid that they think a reporter is going to know what they are seeing, identify it, and then, you know, tell teams, right? The National Football League is a league where they do not want their fans, who ignore them, and they should, in training camp, using their phones to take video because what if the Green Bay Packers see that? But yet the National Football League is a league where, for now the second time, we have a former National Football League very successful Super Bowl champion quarterback. It started with Tom Brady, who owns part of the Raiders, became the top analyst for Fox. So he was, and at first it's like, you can't come to these production meetings, you can't come into this. But I think in 2025, they loosened those up. Well, now it's Troy Aikman, who's decided he enjoyed his dalliance as a consultant for the Dolphins so much that he's going to continue in that role. But, of course, Troy is also, and he's very good at it, the lead analyst on Monday Night Football with Joe Buck for ESPN. And so now what you're telling me is that a guy who has had access to teams and ideas and buildings as a media member for how long now, 20 some odd years, is now consulting for a team. And I want to read you one quote that Aikman gave that the league has declined to respond to. But this just sort of takes you behind the curtain of how things work. Aikman said of his job with the Dolphins, I think the Dolphins were wise in understanding my relationships around the league and knowing that I have information that they don't have or can't get. And I think they were smart in taking advantage of that, whether it was through me or through somebody else. So basically what he's saying is, yeah, I know a lot of stuff. I go visit every team, and I'm now sharing that with a team. So we can't get into watch practices, which, by the way, I don't want to. I'm fine with that. But my point is, you're paranoid that some Joe Blow who covers your team is going to share information that might lead to your downfall, yet you're allowing Troy Aikman to cover your games, talk to your coaches, to then share those ideas with the Dolphins. It's so hypocritical. If you're not going to worry about it, don't worry about it. If you are, what are we doing?
I mean, maybe the league is saying, you know what? So the Raiders and the Dolphins are the teams that are kind of trying to play this game. And they're so hapless, it's not going to matter. Now, if the Chiefs, Thor, or the Eagles come in and try to hire someone, then you might have a problem.
That's
ridiculous.
Yeah, might be a different story there. I think I've changed my tune on this. Where the first time you hear about the controversy with Brady, I was like, just let him be. I think I'm going the other way now, where I think, the more that I think about this, you have to make them choose. Aikman's quote, I mean, he lays it all out there for you, right? And why shouldn't they have to choose? Or it should be that the teams, like the networks, if you're going to keep those guys on, they are not allowed to talk to other, like for their broadcast meetings, not be involved with. And there was something with that with Brady. I forgot what the specific rule was, but yeah, you should not be able to get active intel from other teams from behind enemy lines, as it were. Them telling you things, these private meetings that they would never say at a podium in front of the other media, and then bring it back to your building and then be like, oh, this guy, here's his weakness, or if we put it in this coverage, or whatever. So I'm starting to go more towards that side.
I mean, couldn't you, how far could you take this strategy? Obviously it's high profile to hire Brady and Aikman, or in Brady's case, the Raiders didn't hire him. He bought in. He's investing in the team as a minority owner. The Dolphins have gone a step down and said, oh, we'll just hire Troy, and he can have two jobs now. He can work for ESPN, and then he can consult for us. There's other people that are in those production meetings. There's production assistants, right? Could you literally just pay way less money for Bob, the production assistant, to consult for you, the Dolphins, and keep it under the radar? Listen, what did you hear on that conference call, Bob?
I'm going after as my consultant, Greg freaking Olson.
Yeah, he talks to everybody.
That dude knows ball. I think he strikes me as a potential GM at some point in time. I'd love to pay Greg a couple of $1 and say, hey, dude, you tell me what's going on, okay?
Where would you draw the line? Jonathan Vilma? I'm not even sure he's picking up what's happening.
No one wants to hear Jonathan Vilma's opinion.
No.
Not us, not the teams. Jonathan,
the Cold Cuts were great.
Can we pay Jonathan Vilma not to be on TV anymore?
You hire him as a consultant. He raves about the catering. Oh man, the Vikings have great catering. Right. What about their scheme? I got to be honest, guys. I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention on that call.
Just all storylines and cliches from our friend Jonathan Vilma.
Oh, God.
The thing that I with Troy Aikman, it was like a year ago. He was complaining about college football is broken and I'm never doing the NIL thing again. UCLA, they wanted me to come in and pay $1 million so they could get this quarterback, and then he just transferred after a year without thanking me. He's clearly talking about Dante Moore, and it's like, Troy, are you doing the Dolphins thing to get back your Dante Moore money? Is that Is that what's going on here? And then when you're, next year at this time in the war room, you're going to be like, do not take that Dante Moore. He'll leave you after a year and he won't even thank you. But what's Troy Aikman going to tell you? Honestly, you employ hundreds of people in these NFL organizations, but no, if we get Troy Aikman in there, it's really going to move the needle. Make them go off the broadcasting if they're going to work for the teams. I think is where I've gone. Yeah,
it's a spy. There's a spy in the building.
Yeah, that's right.
It is hilarious. And by the way, like what's even crazier is I don't know what the consulting fee is for Troy Aikman, but I do know that he makes like $20 million a year doing Monday Night Football for ESPN.
True.
So he's just got this little side gig over here for. Do you think he makes $1 million maybe as a consultant for the Dolphins?
I hope so. He needs that Dante Moore money back. And maybe he can get back in the NIL game if he, with this money. Maybe he just, we'll put it right to high school recruiting.
Yeah. UCLA, don't even bother.
Yeah, they might be beyond.
They don't even bother
NIL saving
at this point. Yeah.
Thor has a draft-related take, and then also if we have time before the end of football takes, I think we will. Bill Barnwell has 32 trades as part of his all-trades mock draft. And I want to throw at least a couple of them at you guys here. Shout out to Dickey's Barbecue also for powering football takes here today. Dickey's Barbecue Pit celebrating 85 years of slow-smoked Texas barbecue. You can either go in to the Eagan location in the Twin Cities and just have a great little meal, lunch, dinner, whatever, or catering. So especially for like big events, big sporting event watch parties or grad parties, office lunches, whatever it may be, they will bring a boatload of food to you. Beef brisket, pulled pork, chicken, ribs, spicy cheddar sausage, all the sides you can think of.
Phil, what if you had a watch party 2 weeks from Thursday and bring me some of that barbecue 2 weeks from Thursday? Bring all the buddies, all the barbecue.
Your doorbell rings and it's just the ESPN draft chimes. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's the Dickey's Barbecue van pulling up. Yeah, 1-866-BARBECUE or go to dickeys.com. Dickey's Barbecue in Eagan. All right, Thor. So give us a take.
Well, we were just talking about food we'd like to order for the draft. There's a prospect that might be wanting the Vikings to order late in day 3 here. That is the talk of the NFL right now that none of us had ever heard of 1 week ago right now. Nigerian defensive tackle prospect Ugo Bernard. He went and worked out under the NFL International Player Pathway Program, the IPP. Bernard's from a small village in Nigeria where most become farmers. He had never played American football even 3 years ago. He was discovered as a basketball player by that IPP program and like, hey, you want to work out? Like when they saw this kid moving around and at the HBCU showcase is where he ended up testing here recently. Here's the measurements and the measurables on Ugo Bernard. 6'4.5", 306 pounds. 39-inch vertical jump, which is the highest ever recorded from an interior defensive line prospect in the NFL pre-draft process. A 4.63 40-yard dash, which was way up there. That was 99.7th percentile. A 10'10" broad jump, which also broke the record for interior defensive line prospects, and of course would have both been the best at the NFL Combine. The absolute physical specimen, physical freak here. NFL analyst Ryan Fowler reported that Bernard he has scheduled visits with the Broncos and Colts already, but there's 6 other teams that are working with him to try to get a visit. Obviously, we're running out of time here with the draft 2 weeks away, but the 6 other franchises that want him to visit: 49ers, Chiefs, Commanders, Cowboys, Eagles. And are you sitting down, boys? Your Minnesota Vikings. And I just started to think about this, Brian Flores, with this guy. And Bernard, it's going to take a couple years, obviously, right? Like very, very little experience. But you could not have a better physical package than this. And that would be a really interesting fit. But, when we talk about like the IPP program, the common one, the success story it's always brought up is Jordan Mailata, who was an Australian rugby player. And obviously made good there. Not everyone, has, right? Like the hit rate, of course, is not 100, but you do have some huge success stories. This is a quote from Jordan Llewellyn, who was training Bernard for the NFL draft in Florida. Quote, and this comes from The Athletic, Bruce Feldman's story. So he's referring to Bernard here. Quote, hands down, he is the most explosive athlete I have ever seen in my life. This is an NFL athletic trainer. He broad jumped 10 foot, 10 inches, and it was effortless. At 306 pounds, I have never seen anything like it, end quote. Pretty crazy. And, there's been a lot of talk here of Bernard's going to get drafted. And people might be like, well, you just start, even if the dimensions and the athleticism, it's great. Like, just started playing the sport. He does have a couple things going for him. And one of them was the rule that the NFL made for IPP players. And Phil, you brought this up in the pre-show, when we were talking about this. But NFL teams get a roster exemption for IPP players that have been taken in the draft. If they're less than 24 years old, there's some other rules with it, but basically it allows when every other NFL franchise, your roster max is 90 in the offseason. If you take an IPP player, you get 91. So you get an extra guy to go through the offseason.
If you draft him, he doesn't count on your 90 man.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. Now he does when it's the final roster cut downs, right? So you have to play it straight at that time, but you get the free spot up until it cuts down to 53. So that's why I mean, like, this kid's going to get drafted, right? I mean, because you get a free roster spot. So someone is going to take a shot on him. Is it going to be 6 rounds? Is it going to be 7th round? Will someone try to hop the line a little bit above that? I mean, that's what we're sort of watching here. But yeah, just a fascinating prospect coming out of nowhere here in UR Bernard.
I have questions, but Judd, jump in here. I actually have a comparison here.
A Phil comp. I like this.
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
What is your so if somebody jumps the line, so to speak, where are we talking about? Like, what would be the 5th round?
The recent precedent, the Lions for an IPP prospect, it was either 3rd or 4th round. A couple years ago. I think that would be 3rd round. That's a little too early. But I think if it was 4th, I think it would be a big surprise, but it wouldn't be like an outright stunner. But I think probably 5 was probably more realistic as far as that. Yeah.
How old is he again?
He is. I had it somewhere. I believe he's 22.
Okay.
Bernard.
So he's in line with, like, he's not like 25 or something. He's in line with other.
Yeah.
So this is
and by the way, the IPP rule, you have to be 24 or less to qualify for that as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the comparison I'm going to give you here is a little apples to oranges, but you're talking about. And do you have a RAS score out of 10?
I do have a RAS score out of 10.
Oh, yeah.
You want to hear
right
it?
now?
Because I have a RAS score on my comp, and I want to know what it is.
Well, Bernard's is 9.9, and here's where, you guys know, I love the pre-draft process. I love RAS. That's not the craziest thing, is him having a 9.9 RAS with he did every single test. The crazy thing is his height is 91st percentile, his weight was 71st percentile, and he had he had the best, like I said, vertical, broad, close to the best 40, and then the splits were both some of the best. His shuttle was 79th percentile, which isn't bad. That's still an athletic freak. But his 3-cone was 17th percentile. He was terrible at the 3-cone. That's the thing that brought it down to the 99th percentile, right? If he had just skipped the 3-cone, he would have the 10 RAS. Yeah. So it's kind of funny, and people have brought up, both. There is of course the thing of you have the straight line, linear, explosive athletes. You have more the side to side athletes. Bernard appears to be more of the slingshot propulsion sort of explosive guy. But in addition to that, the 3-cone, it's one of those where you practice a lot in advance with your training, because you can cut off fractions of seconds by your footwork and stuff like that. And maybe Bernard did not have that kind of training that some of these other prospects did before that.
So what this reminds me of a little bit, and Judd can maybe tell a story or two here, and I verified this guy's relative athletic score was a 9.9 as well.
Okay.
His RAS score was a 9.9 as well. He was 26 years old when he, with no real football experience, entered NFL camp. But he had a 9.9 RAS. He ran a 4.65 40-yard dash as a 6'3", 290-pound behemoth. He had, let's see here, his vertical jump was 35. His broad jump was a 8.9 on a RAS. Brock Lesnar
Yeah.
2004 NFL undrafted free agent. You take a freak athlete at almost, so for the audience, relative athletic score is, and they go back like in the archives. Math Bomb on Twitter does a great job of this. I think he's had some health issues, and so he's kind of scaled back a little bit, but he has been putting together player cards, basically taking all of your testing athletically and seeing where do you rank among all players going back to like 1987 in these tests per your position and your weight and your height and all these things. But Brock Lesnar came in as a classic example in 2004. Holy crap, this dude is as athletic relative to his size as anyone's ever seen. Can we mold him into an actual football player? That's the hardest part, though. Like, Brock was a caged animal, too. You put him out there in a training camp rep, and he's trying to murder his teammates.
Yeah.
So
Remember when he
much can
jumped
you
over the
mold-
guy's back and he tried to do like a pile driver? And
It's not wrestling, dude.
So I wonder, like, on a scale of, like, let's say Jordan Mailata, Brock Lesnar to Jordan Mailata, how moldable are we going to find this guy to be? Is my
we're going
question.
to put him somewhere in between.
This
Put
kid
him in
looks
between.
Just from his profile and pictures, though, this kid looks like he could also be transitioned to edge.
Good.
Like
Yeah.
he looks like a lean machine, man.
Probably
Yeah.
not in like a Flores edge, because you got to be a little lighter and more nimble and drop
Yeah,
into coverage
but-
more.
but
like
in a 4-3
4-3
edge.
or something. Yeah.
4-3 edge. This guy looks like he could move up and down the line. So we're talking from like the 3 tech, wide
B-gap
9,
on
perhaps.
out. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
great.
yeah,
Yeah.
A defensive end in that 3-4, and then when your nickels, your dimes, when you go to the even front, and then he's it's a de facto 3 technique. You're just crashing gaps, like just get through there and get to the guy with the ball,
Right.
Like just
Exactly.
the explosion at that
Simplification.
size. Simplification. Yeah. Can we figure something out early, like situational usage? Like how long would it take to get him up to speed? But you could not work with a more intriguing ball of clay than that.
Oh my gosh. I'm so excited. So excited. Okay, next thing for you guys here. It's a little game of Who Says No. And it's from Bill Barnwell's All Trades mock draft on ESPN.com from this morning. He takes all 32 teams and where they're picking, and in a vacuum, he doesn't, it's not like, well, here's the first one, and then it's a chain of events. It's 32 different trades with neutral context for each one. So I'm going to give you guys 2 or 3 of his projected or not projected, but like proposed trade ideas, and you tell me who says no. The first one, right out of the gate, for the number 1 overall pick, he's got the Jets moving up from 2 to 1, and the Raiders getting the Jets' second-round pick, the 33, and their 4th-round pick, the 103. Would you, if you're the Raiders, would you move back 1 spot, pick up an early 2nd and early 4th, but say goodbye to Fernando Mendoza?
No.
Who says no?
The Raiders say no to that one, but I think the more interesting one is now I wouldn't do this if I was the Jets, but this is what you would have to do to make the Raiders think about it. If you bring up your 2027 round 1 pick. Now that's because the Raiders would have to be like, yo, let me talk. Let me get the group together. We're going to talk about it and I'll call you back later. You would have to talk about it. If the Jets 2027 first round pick was on the board. Now I don't think that the Raiders probably would have to give something back there, right? Like, so I don't know how that deal would work, but no, for the second, it's not enough. It's a 1 quarterback class. So to get the Raiders to kick the can to the next year, but then you're not giving them any extra equity in 2027, just a high 2nd round pick in a down draft class, that would be a no. But if that 2027 is on the table, maybe let's talk.
I've got a third party who says no, and that would be the Mendoza camp. I would pull.
Oh, yeah.
If the Jets got the top pick, I'm going full Elway and Eli. I'm not playing for you. I'm not going to sign with you. I'm not going to play for you.
Yeah.
You have proven yourself to be basically quarterback hell,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I don't trust you, and I need you to be competent. So
They're gonna run into that same thing with the Manning family. I mean, the Jets are gonna have that same problem in 2027 as well.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Didn't Peyton partially skip the draft after his junior year because of the Jets? I thought there was a story where I thought there was something about Peyton and the Jets, and I think he went back to Tennessee, right, for his senior season.
Yeah.
I thought that might have involved the Jets as well.
Okay.
I'm looking up who had the top. This a little before my time, so you got to forgive me. Was it the year before? Was that the Orlando Pace draft?
Yeah, 97 was the Pace draft, right?
Yeah.
And then 98 was the Manning draft. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Interesting, but yeah, the Mannings, they will use their leverage. We know that's just. I mean, they were. Arch Manning was talking about. Archie Manning was So the grandfather was talking about Arch's draft process last summer, and he was like, "Yeah, he's probably gonna. Everyone knows he's gonna be going back for his last season." And then Arch is like, "Whoa." But it's my draft process, and I get to decide.
No, it's not.
And Grandpa's like, no, son, no.
Grandpa took his son out of San Diego, which, by the way, I mean, the Chargers were a little bit of a dumpster fire, but not horrendous.
Yeah, not like that.
And they're like, you're not playing for San Diego.
If it's the Jets, Archie, feel free to step in.
Yeah.
Okay, here's another one. Who says no? This is for the 23rd overall pick here, where the Eagles currently sit. So the Raiders would come calling here. The Raiders would get the 23rd overall pick. They would get the Eagles' 2027 third-round pick and young edge rusher Nolan Smith Jr., who has a couple years left on his contract. Took a little bit of a step back last year for Max Crosby. So Eagles get Max Crosby. Instead of giving up the 2 first-round picks that the Ravens backed out on, they give up the 1 first-round pick, a third, and Nolan Smith Jr. 2 years of Nolan Smith Jr. Who says no?
That one's interesting. You might have to give up it might have to be a second rounder in 2027, but that one's interesting. The Raiders would have to think about that, and the Eagles, I think they might be interested in talking about that. There's at least a conversation starter here, I think.
Yeah, that's plausible. And I guess the key thing, though, is can we get the physical done before the trade is released?
Yeah, got to do that.
Because, I mean, there
we do
could
a
be
live
something wrong
primetime special. It's Max Crosby's physical and we put it up for bidding. YouTube or whatever.
And it's
2
called
hours in an MRI machine.
And it's called by Kenny Albert and Jonathan Vilma.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Welcome to Fox. I'm Kenny Albert, and this is Jonathan Vilma, and we are inside the medical center.
Oh man, I wouldn't.
Where Max Crosby is.
It's going on mute. Whatever they're commentating, it's going on mute.
Look at those tattoos outside the medical gown arm sleeves.
That's
Wow.
right, Kenny.
And let's kick it. Jonathan, what do you think about this? You go under the knife. It can be detrimental, Kenny. So we'll just see how this goes.
These machines are big, Kenny.
It kind of reminds me of when we took a knife to Brett Favre's rib cage in the 2009 NFC Championship game. And then we'll throw this one at you. We talked about this on Purple Daily. This feels like the Vikings should 100% say no, and the Rams should absolutely call and try and do this, but why not? But it would be the Vikings moving up from 18 to 13, so up 5 spots in the first round, and the Rams would they'd get the 18th pick, moving back 5 spots, the 97th pick, and J.J. McCarthy as a buy low young backup to Matthew Stafford.
No, that one's ridiculous. Like first of all, who would be available at 13 where you're gonna
that was our question to you, is like, what is the value of moving up in the first round if you're in the mid-teens or a team like the Vikings 18th?
Who's there? Like what is this? The Jeremiah Love's not going to be there. Like what would this scenario be to even have a phone call? Caleb Downs maybe?
Yeah, he's saying either Downs if it gave you access to Downs, or because he had the Vikings moving up to 9, and he's got the Vikings moving everywhere in this drive. It's amazing.
The Vikings, who have all these holes, don't have enough picks to fill them. Now they're going to pony everything up to because this is a Super Bowl contender, right?
Yeah. And it's not a great draft, to your point. So, this would be a 27 discussion probably if you were going to do it. Yeah, it just makes no sense.
If I'm the Rams, that's for sure. Send it in. You want to do that? Let's do it.
If I'm the Vikings, I would rather just stay in my slot 5 picks back, and then if I have made the decision to trade J.J. McCarthy, just get an extra pick for him, to me, versus moving up 5 spots
I don't think Kevin O'Connell's going to want to see McCarthy with McVay.
That's what I said too.
Yeah, I don't think that would look the best on the other side.
Hey, boys, we got some breaking National Football League news per Adam Schefter as we wrap up here.
Wait, I thought his career was going to be over by the end of this show.
No, his career is still going. It might be on life support. It might be on life support, but it's still going. So Adam Schefter, ESPN sources, Giants all-pro defensive tackle Dexter Lawrence has requested a trade, and he will not be participating in the team's offseason workout program that opens Tuesday. Lawrence and the Giants have been through 2 off seasons attempting to negotiate a contract reflecting his value to the Giants. It's so funny. These are all now just written by the agent over the last 3 years, but there has not been any progress per sources. Like, this should just
be signed. The Giants are a terrible organization, and Dexter can't wait to leave to try and pursue a Super Bowl.
Dexter said anyway. So Dexter Lawrence, though, that's a big draft night potential trade right there.
Yeah, that sure is. That's a big piece of news, especially if there's a line in the sand from the Lawrence side, which that would seem like that's what this is. And they've gotten through it here the last couple of years. You know, Dexter's been like the good soldier, as it were, but it appears that those times are over. And yeah, I'm very curious. The teams that are going to kick the tires here, and can the Giants get something done before the draft, or do the Giants, do they feel like impetus to do it before the draft? Honestly, if I'm the Giants, I hold out for, high offer, and I'm happy to go through the draft and even into the summer. And I don't care how much noise Dexter Lawrence makes, because I would rather trade him for 2027 draft equity than 2026. So for me, okay, you're under contract. You can say whatever you want publicly. It's our prerogative. That's what I would do.
Mm-hmm. Super interesting. Do you think so? He's only like 28 years old still. It feels like he's been around for 10 years. But he was drafted young, former mid first round pick. He's got 2 years left on his contract, carrying him through 30 years old. I mean, that's if Max Crosby was traded for 2 first round picks at one point a few weeks ago, and then it was pulled off the table, it's at least a first round pick for Dexter Lawrence, right? If you rank the interior defensive linemen in the NFL, like, he's in the top 5, even on a bad team, right?
I want to say
first round pick.
In 2024, there was something with his contract, because on Purple Daily, we had various discussions about the Vikings pursuing him, because if you plop that guy into the middle of your defensive line, like 4 weeks in, around the deadline or so, which is 8 weeks in, it's a game changer.
100%. Every NFC North team needs an interior defensive lineman. You could argue that the one that plays close to us needs 2, but Lions, Packers, Bears, they all need interior defensive line help. Of course, they're not the only teams in the league, but yeah, there's plenty of teams that need interior defensive line that I expect them to be calling.
He'd be a terrifying Chicago Bear, Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah, and some of those teams, they were kicking the tires on trades, or they were trying to do stuff and just haven't gotten it to the finish line. Bears and Packers both in their contention window here. The Lions, they seem kind of in a transitionary period, so I don't know that I would expect that one, even though, with they didn't re-sign Reeder, and then I'm blanking on the other interior defensive lineman that left. But all those teams need interior defensive linemen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Dude, so we got, going into the draft, we've got Dexter Lawrence on the table, Max Crosby possibly on the table, Jonathan Grenard in Minnesota on the table. So there are some things perculating.
There's some football chaos. The football Doppler is sensing a lot of tornadic activity.
If you enjoy these football takes on this new podcast here on the Score North Network, Thor and Eystrom, Judd Zolgad, Phil Mackey, our awesome producers, AJ and Declan behind the scenes too, hit that follow button or that subscribe button on the YouTube channel, the like button if you enjoy this, and then you can help us out by also consuming on Apple and Spotify and giving us a 5-star rating and a positive review, the home of Thor's draft content as well throughout draft season. We'll see you guys later this week. Football takes. There we go.